Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Just Jocelyn. I'm one of your hosts, Sabrina Hannon.
And I'm the other host, Jasmine Heron. This week, we're back in the City of Angels for Season 1, Episode 6, Sense and Sensitivity.
Yes, it's, I forgot that this episode existed, I'm not going to lie, but it's there.
I don't think it's one of their better episodes, and there are a lot of things in here that I took issue with in terms of what they considered sensitivity. But we will get into that as we hit the talking stick.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense now knowing more about Joss Whedon this episode. I will say also, like, we had talked about this like between us before we started recording at some point, that season 1 of Angel is running a lot like season 1 of Buffy, and that like monster of the week, trying to set up like people from the Buffyverse know Angel, know Cordelia, know what this whole deal is really going to be, but they were also pulling in people who were not fans of Buffy initially, so they have to do all this world building. But yeah, we start off with a man running from Kate. She's chasing him down, and he's like very clearly, I think, a mob guy, and she catches him. She's arresting him because he didn't show up at the precinct to talk to her.
His name is Spivey.
I'm guessing that's a last name.
And she's asking him where Anthony, aka Little Tony Papazian, is, because Little Tony murdered the county supervisor. Although the guy, Spivey, is just like, I heard he committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head, wrapping himself in plastic, and sticking himself in the trunk of his car. Like, he was depressed. Definitely the tough guy, the stereotypical tough guy.
Oh yes, yeah. So Kate hauls him down to the station, and in the meantime, we have Angel fighting a sewer demon. We just see like all these tentacles, and he's yelling for Cordelia and Doyle as he's chopping off tentacle limbs. And apparently Doyle and Cordelia ran to get an enchanted sword, and they were supposed to have, this is the second time Angel has taken on this demon apparently, because they didn't dispose of him correctly the first time, so he's a bit peeved. And Cordelia wants some thanks for the work that they do.
Yep. So he says, I'm gonna go take care of the nest, you guys finish disposing of the body. But he just kind of barks the order and leaves. And Cordelia is like, there's no please, there's no thank you, like, just, cut up sort of thing. And she points out that he oftentimes has, I say, like, etiquette and politeness towards their customers, but towards his employees, he just kind of barks orders and expects it to be okay. And he doesn't have a gentle hand with the people who are closest to him.
If you think back to how the Scooby Gang functioned, no one's saying like, will you please go do this? They're just expected to, because I think specifically Xander, we see struggle with that he doesn't feel like he's a valuable member of the Scoobies, specifically in high school, perhaps because of that.
Yeah, although I do feel like there are a couple of times where, Buffy will say, we need someone to do this. Willow? But she's asking Willow. She's not saying, Willow, go do this. She's saying, we need someone to do this. I'm appointing you, but give me the,
She's also not paying them.
Yes.
The paycheck is the thank you.
Yes.
But Cordelia also, the only other job she's really had is working at a dress shop. But there is that, it is important to make your employees feel valued, but I'm also pretty sure that the reason he's chopping up this demon is because they didn't do their job correctly the first time. Yep. There is no thank you for that.
And meanwhile, while Cordelia is like, going on about how clueless Angel is, she's totally clueless to the fact that Doyle has been attacked by the still not dead tentacle monster
Yeah.
and is strangling him. And he's like gesticulating in the background, like, please save me.
Yeah. So that I feel like that's probably the only time I'm really like, haha, this is funny moment in this episode.
Yep.
Although that's not meant to be the only haha, this is funny moment.
So the one thing that we did miss out on is that when Kate is interrogating Spivey, at one point he's really like talking down to her and we're not playing this game, whatever. And apparently she's been in the interrogation room for hours. And at one point she grabs him and like, almost puts him in an arm lock or a neck lock against the wall.
Mhm.
And the other officers have to like rush in and separate them because that's police brutality, which apparently even in today's day and age is considered acceptable, but it's not. And Harlan is one of her like peers, her colleagues, I think on the same level as her. And he's saying that, without getting Spivey to talk, they've got no other way to locate Papazian. Which is why in this next scene, when Cordelia and Doyle come in all covered in goop, and yelling at Angel about being rude and insensitive, Kate shows up.
Yes. And she's there, to ask Angel to find this guy, which he agrees, he does agree to do. So I'm lying, because it does lead to an amusing scene with Angel.
Yep.
I don't know, I think David Boreanaz does comedy well, specifically when undercover.
Yeah.
As you see him do a lot more in Bones. But I think before we get to Angel finding the guy, or looking for him really, Kate's dad is retiring from the police force, and it looks like he's just a plainclothes police officer, so he would actually be beneath her. And that's just based on his uniform. Yep. He does not appear to be a detective, which, I mean, if you're retiring and you're not a detective but your daughter is, and based off of what the attitude we're seeing from this man, that doesn't seem something he would take well. He doesn't seem like someone who would be the proud papa. But yeah, he's retiring. She says she was asked to come to his retirement party and give a little speech, and he's basically like, you don't really have to come to this, like, if it's not going to put you out or anything. And he's not saying that as someone who means like, oh, this is really excessive, you don't have to. He just doesn't want her included.
Yep. He doesn't seem to care.
No. He is not a good father. You can tell within this very short interaction. So Angel does go and find the mobster guy on the docks. He's going to be leaving town. Before he calls Kate to let her know that this is happening, and she says, great, get out of there, I'm on my way. After he hangs up with her, he sees a boat's coming in to take him away, so he has to distract. And he dresses like a stereotypical tourist would during the day, in one of those Hawaiian shirts and that terrible hat.
Yep. Now, I mean, is this Doyle's shirt? Like, it looks like a Xander Harris Laundry Day shirt.
It does. It does look like a Xander Harris Laundry Day. I would say that Doyle, if it's supposed to be a shirt that Angel would have borrowed from Doyle, Angel would not fit in any of Doyle's clothes. His shoulders are definitely more broad. So there's that, unless Doyle was feeling, it was like, I'm having a bad body day. I'm going to wear a big shirt to make myself feel better.
Well, I feel like with Doyle would wear the shirt open. Like, you know how some guys wear button-down shirts on top of other shirts? Like maybe that would be the oversized Hawaiian shirt like, that Doyle would wear, which fits as a closed shirt over Angel.
Yeah.
But anyways, we've got this very ridiculous outfit that Angel is wearing. And he pretends to be a lost tourist going to take
a cruise or a midnight cruise type deal, or a boat to Catalina.
Yep.
Yeah, and they were like, no, dude, you're in the wrong place. And but the head mob guy has really, which I don't remember his name at the moment, has caught on to the fact that Angel's not who he appears to be. And I was like, get rid of this guy. And Angel says, like, it was the hat, it's too much, right?
Yep. And the hat was a bit too much.
It's nighttime.
But who did he introduce himself as? He gives a specific name.
I think it's just like, I don't remember.
It was like Herb or something.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Some old man name, honestly. A name that you wouldn't think someone was going to injure you with.
Yep. Anyways, so they lock up the guy, and Kate specifically says to Angel, like, I told you not to get involved. And he says, well, he was going to leave. And she's like, what's with the outfit? Like, she calls him dressed up as a road flare.
And all the while, this mob guy in the car, who's now been arrested, is like staring daggers at her.
Little Tony.
Little Tony. And like, he also clocks Angel too. But once they're back at the precinct, he says he's basically going to get even with Kate, because he takes and he wants his call, and he's also being like real creepy. Like, he says, if I had known that you had been chasing me or that you had been chasing me, I might have let myself get caught a little sooner. Kate responds, had I known, talking about how he is, she might have let him. Yeah, he need the exercise. She would have let him run a little bit longer. And he's just like, huh.
Yep. But he does. Like, it's this immediate reaction towards, oh, female cop, I'm going to use sex as a weapon. Like, I'm going to use sex and basically like the threat of sex as a weapon against her.
And I'm sure she gets that constantly.
Yeah. And that's not something that he would have said to a male cop.
No. So he goes in with his one phone call, and he calls his lawyers, Wolfram and Hart. And he says, he has a thorn in his side and he wants it taken care of. And we see a printout of Kate come out. So leading us all to think that, that's the thorn.
Lee Mercer. And Lee is so weird. He's like a robot wearing a lawyer suit.
He's so plastic. Like, that's the only word I could think to describe him, was like plastic. Like, I think they even did something to his skin to give him like a weird plastic look. He doesn't look quite human.
He just, and he's got no reactions. Like, he is just a guy reading his lines. And we get to this part where they say they're going to take care of it, basically, right? And Lee shows up and he's like, oh yes, we want to remove little Tony Papazian from the precinct because of how aggressive Kate Lockley is. And it's weird because he's like, I want all the threats from my client stricken from the record, but I want every nuance of what she's saying entered into the record and like underlined. Like, you know, she goes, "Ah," he wants the "Ah," entered into the record.
Which I'm pretty sure when you're in an interrogation room, there's no striking anything from the record like that. Like it's all taken down. So that's, you know, just for show and to annoy. But he says, like, if you don't let me remove my client from here, I'm going to drag out every bit of police brutality this precinct has done, and it's a lot, into the public court. Like,
Yep.
and again, we see police brutality being talked about very openly.
Yep.
I mean, it is LA. The LA riots were not even 10 years prior what happened to Rodney King. So it's, especially in LA at that time, like it was still, I shouldn't say in LA, to the rest of America about LA. It was still like a reference people got. Whereas now it doesn't matter what city you're in, people will be like, yep, okay.
Yep. And I think we're also seeing multiple times where Kate, who we consider our protagonist cop, being, you know, inappropriately physical with
Suspects.
suspects. Yes, thank you.
And I think it's,
Even with flat out criminals, she is inappropriately physical with them.
and so with that, I think specifically, I think she's very much so a product of third wave feminism, in that she's going to be tougher than the guys. She's going to be tougher than them. So it's this woman who's made it into this male dominated world, because we don't see other women who are detectives in that room. Just people taking the notes, or women taking the notes rather. So she's, you know, trying to show that she's tougher. Like there's no femininity allowed. So she's not a great protagonist at all.
Well, okay, so then we go back to Angel investigations, and Cordelia's like, yay, case closed. And Angel's like, no, I think little Tony's planning something. And Cordelia kind of goes, like, you know, and she points out that he's highly attuned to boring old evil, but completely failed to notice her new shoes. And you know, they've been having this thing where she feels unappreciated by him, but I don't know why he would have to notice her shoes. And he starts to say, like, men don't notice shoes. But then Doyle walks in, and the first words out his mouth are, hey, Cordelia, new shoes? Looks great. Like,
Doyle also wants to sleep with her, so he's going to notice new things.
Yep.
But yeah, Cordelia's making her point not well.
Yes.
By using that. Also, personally, I think her shoes are ugly, but that's besides the point.
I didn't even notice her shoes, and I'm a woman.
Well, they zoom in on the darn things after, like, for
and yet I still didn't notice them. I probably saw them, but
they were shoes my mother would really like. So yeah.
Doyle says, yes, something is being, little Tony is planning something. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who said something. So Kate goes to the Blue Bar after work, where there's lots of, you know, officers getting together, including her father. This is not the retirement party. This is just the regular cop.
It's a cop bar.
Yep. And her dad buys her a beer, and which is like, oh, hey, you know, and she goes over, she takes it as an opportunity to go over and talk to him, which apparently doesn't happen very often. And he kind of says to her, like, hopefully the wheels don't fall off on this. Like, congratulations, that was a big, you know, a big accomplishment, but it might not see itself all the way through. And then Harlan comes over, her coworker, to bring her a memo about mandatory sensitivity training because of the way she treated little Tony. I'm surprised it's not because of the way she treated Spivey. Like,
Spivey doesn't have the lawyers.
yep.
That's why. It's little Tony that does. And so I think what her father says about the wheels not falling off before the paperwork goes through probably shows how long it definitely shows how long he's been around in a cop, because that does happen, right? People who have money and influence, they're able to weasel their way out of things. So while he's in jail now, it doesn't mean he's going to stay there.
Yeah.
So how he presents it sounds really like snide, but it's actually truth. Like,
yeah.
Being like, you did a really good thing here. And it's kind of like, if he is released, that's not your fault type of thing. Like, this is the system. This is what happens. But he doesn't have the tools to present it well.
He's a very old, jaded cop.
Yes, he is. So the sensitivity training.
We have Alan Lloyd.
And he's talking, and he brings out this talking stick, and he goes over to Heath, and because Heath made like a comment or a scoff, so he makes him be the first one to use the talking stick. And he starts asking him like about his childhood or his family rather. He asks him about his family and goes off. And when Heath starts to feel vulnerable, Kate makes like a wise ass comment about, I think, him wanting to sleep with his mother.
Yes, marry his mother.
Marry his mother.
Alan Lloyd says, is there anything you wish you had said to your mother? And Kate, using humor as a deflection, but also in a way to kind of, I'm one of the guys, makes the will you marry me joke. And again, I feel like that's one of those things where she's trying to be one of the guys, and so she's making an inappropriate kind of sexual joke at the expense of one of her coworkers.
Yeah.
Which tends to be, I have noticed a thing where, and it tends to be men, make a lot of jokes to put to the other people down. Like, you make jokes at other people's expenses, like, instead of, and it's banter, but it's mean.
Yeah. Yeah, this would have been a huge HR issue now, but well, maybe not in a police force, but in a regular workplace. Because there still are places that are considered that have like a toxic masculinity culture attached to them, and anything like military or police, even firefighters, like, you can still get that. Anything that has hazing involved.
Yep.
So yeah, we see Kate do this, and immediately it draws Alan's attention, and now it's her turn. Like, what do you think's going to happen in this situation? So he makes her hold the talking stick.
And he does say, that she uses humor as a deflection, and that she uses anger. And he says the anger is really just fear. Like, you are afraid of being hurt again, which is it's accurate. Like,
everything he's saying is true.
Yes.
Throughout this whole thing, everything he's saying is true.
Yep. And the fact that he's like, let's have sensitivity training so you can learn to de-escalate situations before, before turning to brutality. Yes, that's true, and that's good if people actually use the tools. And I'm a little disappointed in Joss Whedon for then turning this into, well, look how sensitivity training affected the actual cops' ability to do their jobs.
Yeah. And the other thing, so right now, so I've been part of police trainings before, and at a national level now, they're not pushing de-escalation because it doesn't work, because the cops can't de-escalate somebody else when they're already coming in with all of this energy. So it's because de-escalation techniques are for somebody else, and it's the police officer, the people with the guns that need to change. So that's what they're focusing on now, which I think is great. um but yeah, no, this episode really goes off the rails here, um in a very bad way.
Yep. So, moving on to the next part.
Yeah.
Angel finds out with Doyle, from another thug informant, that little Tony is going to be getting out soon. That there's a plan in motion for little Tony to get out, but also to take care of Kate.
Mm-hmm. I love this mob guy, like this informant. He
Johnny
says,
Brad.
yeah, he says he learns all this information in his spin class because a bunch of the other guys go, and he is like very comfortable with himself. He's exercising, like working on his health in his little tracksuit, and I just really enjoy this particular character who was with us for like a minute or two.
Yep. But Angel realizes that, this means that there's basically a hit out on Kate. And so he goes off to the police station to talk to Kate. Kate, who is already being a bit more open in communication, apologizes to him for the way she snapped at him at the pier. But then when Angel's like, okay, but seriously, there's a hit out on you, her response is, oh, that's so big. He must really be hurting to lash out in this way. Instead of, she is making excuses for behavior instead of being empathetic. Like,
Yep. Yeah, because there is a difference. And while it's important to know why people are the way they are, that doesn't always translate to excuses.
But then, and here's a good part, she says that she's going to this Blue Bar Cop thing tonight, her dad's retirement party, and she would appreciate Angel being there. And so I think that she was so closed up before, she never would have asked that. And here was this avenue where she's saying, I would really appreciate having a friendly face, someone to support me. Would you come support me?
Yes.
And Angel says, yeah, but he's more thinking about
the hit.
Yes.
And then, we see that the trainer, after training them for the one day, because there's a second day of the training at least. Mm-hmm. There's at least one, another day. There might be a third. We see that he's at Wolfram and Hart, or rather the lawyer from Wolfram and Hart is at his place. And he is working for them. And he said, after tomorrow, they're not going to be able to defend themselves, basically.
Yep. And again, here's this thing with Lee Mercer, where he was like, I said it's anger, or whatever, and he says, I am feeling concerned. And then at the end, the final quote from him, when Lloyd is like, oh yeah, we got this taken care of, is, that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But he says it with this like monotonous tone. Like there's no like sinister evilness, like, yeah, that makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Like, no, it's, that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, like he very much so delivers it like a psychopath. Like he doesn't have feelings. There is no warm and fuzzy. I think that's what he's going for.
I don't know. But yeah, like throughout the, Lee just has no emotions at all, which we continue to see later.
And I have to wonder, because much later on when we see Gunn and the senior partners, like you have to wonder if you're there for so long, if that happens to you, like you don't have a personality anymore, you don't have inflection in your voice, this is just who you are.
I don't know, because Lila and
Lindsay,
Lindsay definitely have lots of emotions.
they're younger though, aren't they?
Mm, I don't
I'm just
think
judging off of that guy's hairline, so but I am looking forward to when Lindsay is a part of this all of the time.
But okay, so we're at the retirement party. Kate's dad meets Angel and makes this like really awkward comment about how he thought that Kate was basically a lesbian, and so he's glad to see her with a guy.
Not thought, worried.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Kate is horrified right there. And also, since Angel's not her date, that's still a possibility. So, but then it's Kate's time to give a speech. And also, I really hate the dress Kate is wearing. It reminds me of something, the dress that I wore for my 8th grade graduation. It's not a flattering piece.
And again, I think it was trying to like show awkward femininity.
Yeah.
You know,
by wearing an ill-fitting garment. But she gives this speech and it starts out okay. And then she really like hits her pain and talks about it. And we learn all we need to learn about her father in that moment. Like, terrible father. When her mother died, he was like, get over it, kid.
Yeah, and told her that her gone is gone, just dirt and worms. Like,
and she was a little girl. Like, it is made very clear that she was a little girl when this happened. And she talks about her friend's mom and how wonderful she was. And her dad says, like, what the hell did they do to her in that sensitivity training?
Yeah, but I have some more issues with this speech, because there are a few things that happen. So she's talking about, oh, my little girl, you know, knew I wanted. I became a cop because of you. And then she says, my whole life you've never said I'm pretty. But like, has he ever said he's proud of her? Has he ever said that, you know, he respects her? What she focuses on is, you never said I'm pretty.
Yep.
And so that for me, I'm questioning, is it the writer's choice, or has he said he's proud of her? Has he said he admires her strength? Has he said those things? And they're like, but he didn't tell her she was pretty. And I feel like it was more the writer's choice, that he hasn't said all those things, but what Kate cares about is the physicality.
Yeah, I mean, at best, like, he might have, like, buying her the beer, like, rewarding her for those sorts of things may have gotten the message across that, like, good job. But watching that, it doesn't make sense when she says it. It does not make sense. Like, I don't specifically remember my father ever saying that I was pretty. I don't really care that he never did that. Like, that's not the validation I was searching for. Like, just it's a really, like, as she's going, everything else makes sense, but when she says that, it's just a moment where you're like, and there's tons of studies out about how, you know, teachers will say to, it was for elementary school students, they'll tell predominantly, like, the boys will get good work, good grades, all academic stuff. Girls will get, that's a really nice outfit that you're wearing, and stuff like that from their teachers.
Or you're so polite, or you're so,
it's the researchers, at least that I've seen, it's almost always looks. It's always looks like on their report cards, like in the notes, they'll get like polite and stuff like that in those comments, but to the parents, but to the child, it's always about how nice they look. Which, you know, tells kids right away what they're going to get praised for. So the only way that I can make sense of that is that Kate's entire life, everybody else has told her she's pretty and her father hasn't. But again, that's still really weird. Really, really weird.
I don't know. My dad told me I was pretty all the time. So
No,
yeah.
my mother did, but that's not, my dad was more interested in my academics.
Well, I mean, my dad was also more interested in my academics. Like,
Yeah.
my dad was straight up academics. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also like, you know, oh, my beautiful daughter, and like, if I was going to prom and stuff like that, he's like, oh, my beautiful daughter, I need to cover you up. Like, but,
Yeah, no, my dad was very, he was not like Kate's father, but I'm the youngest of 7, and we're all girls minus my brother. Large age difference. In fact, my oldest niece is 3 years younger than me. So being the only thing my father was cared about was one of his kids getting into college, and I was the only one that stood a shot of going and like staying in college. So he really focused on my academics, and that's what I was always praised for when I did things academically well, or like extracurriculars and stuff like that. He had zero interest in any other part of my life. Basically, it was just like, I want you to do this. And he always told me, you don't need a family, Sabrina. What you need is to go to school and have a career. And then my mother would freak out and be like, no, 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 no. You're going to get grandkids elsewhere. This is the only place I'm going to get grandkids. Yeah. Yeah. That was a fight that happened in front of me all the time from when I was really little.
All right. So Kate derails, and Harlan is like, like that, you keep going, you share your pain. And then other people are like, this is not the forum. And then it turns into a brawl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because anyone who was at that sensitivity training is on the same page as Kate. And anyone.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because one of the guys who was also at sensitivity training was doing the, you know, I'm going to tell her that this was not the forum, that this was not, you know.
Yeah, well, anyone who held that stick.
Anyone who held the stick wasn't just on Kate's side, but was having strong emotional reactions to what Kate said.
Yeah.
And some of the older ones who were in sensitivity training were siding with her father in the, you know, you have humiliated your father, and like,
yeah, it's basically all gone sideways, to put it mildly. That's not how you want a party to go, for sure.
Nope. And so Angel rushes Kate off back to his office, calls in Cordelia. Cordelia nearly lets slip in front of Kate that Angel's a vampire, and instead calls him a ventriloquist. And they find out about the sensitivity training, which Angel goes to investigate, while Kate is continuing to ramble about her father and about her feelings. And she points out that Doyle has a crush on Cordelia, and that Cordelia is using humor to deflect. Like,
yeah, because she doesn't know what to do about Doyle. And we just watch Kate go on this like emotional roller coaster, and Doyle and Cordelia now want to crawl out of their skin. So Angel does make his way to Alan's house and is finding his way through there. His house has lots of weird gates inside, or at least one. And while he's doing this, Kate gets in her head that she has to find her daddy and pulls out a gun. And she was like, I don't want to, but I will shoot you if you try and get in between me and my daddy.
Yep. And again, and this is this weird infantilizing of Kate, where all of a sudden she's like, my daddy.
She calls him daddy earlier too when she sees him at the precinct, like before the sensitivity training.
No.
Yes, she does.
She calls him dad.
Daddy.
I want to check this because I noted that the first time she sees him, she goes, dad. And then once she starts using the sensitivity stick, starts calling him daddy.
No, like I remember because all of my siblings, up until the day my dad died, called him daddy. I was the only one that didn't.
I've got it on here. I'm gonna.
When Angel's talking to that Alan guy, he tries to do some of the mumbo jumbo on him about like, let's talk about your parents, and punches Angel or hits Angel in the face, and he goes, parents are great, tasted a lot like chicken, and then he comes back full vamp face.
And again, I've got questions about that because, like, does blood taste like chicken? Or is he's just making that comment?
He's just making that comment, yeah. And it is funny. It is funny because he comes back with vamp face.
Yeah.
I don't mind how Angel uses his humor there because he did kill his parents. His whole family. His whole family.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Well, not him. A demon in his body did.
And jealous.
Yes.
And jealous.
Yeah.
All right. I've got this scene and I've got. Oh, you're right. She does. She calls him daddy.
Yep. Throughout the whole thing. That's what she calls him. So it's not her. She's whining when she says my daddy, but that's just what she calls him. Which I think speaks more to the fact that like she just wants him to parent her. That's what she wants, and he doesn't do that.
That correction. Yeah. And pointing that out to me, but yeah. So okay. But again, so she goes off with her gun to go, find her daddy, and Cordelia and Doyle are like, we'll follow from a distance, and
because you have a gun and a lot of emotions that are going up, down, up, down, up, down.
And so the precinct is
it's chaos.
We see like one cop saying, I understand your feelings, but have you considered the feelings of your mugger? And like, what?
Which,
like,
I had to rewind because I heard mother and I'm like, he's mugging his mother. And then I was like, oh, wait.
Yeah. Mugger. Yeah.
Mother.
And again, I don't, even if you're being sensitive, you're not like, have you considered the feelings of your mugger? You can have empathy for like the mugger situation where they're like, hey, I'm really in a desperate, situation and I need money for food or housing or, but you can be empathetic towards a person's situation and not be like, have you considered the feelings of the person attacking you?
Yeah, because they've victimized you. You don't have to consider their feelings. Like you don't. Maybe later you can, but right after it's happened, you most certainly do not. You have trauma brain at that point.
Anyways, so they're all the chaos, and then one of the decides that he's going to free all of the criminals or suspect. I think this in the jail. Basically.
Everyone who's been arrested, because they're only there if they've been arrested.
Yeah.
They're in cells.
And he's saying, it's not right locking them all together, treating them like animals. I agree with that part. But then his decision is to just let them all go. And they beat him up and raid the gun cabinet. And
which if I was a criminal, I would have just left.
Yeah.
I don't need to add police brutality, like not police brutality, hurting a cop or like killing a cop to my record. I just need to get out of there. But none of the criminals take that into consideration. They're all just like, time to seek revenge.
Yep.
And little Tony is one of the criminals, and he runs to get ammunition and guns. Like he's not leaving either, which is not the plan.
Yeah, he's
that was laid out for him.
Yep.
So Angel is running to the station, and we see like chaos just happening around him. Like there's car accidents and cops are at that, and he's like, and the cops are like, "Have you ever thought about how this makes me feel?" and whatnot. There's just chaos, more so than normal, in the streets of Los Angeles. It's very similar almost to Band Candy, like this idea of you want the authority or the people in authority not to be in the right mindset. And it doesn't bring them down to a childlike mindset, except for like that one cop who's very centered on himself.
Mm-hmm.
But
talk about Harlan's grossness.
Oh yeah, when he goes up to Kate. Yeah.
He goes up to Kate and he's like, it hurts to be rejected. And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, I have been begging you to love me for 2 years. And the way that you smell taunts me. And like,
he's a guy that uses the word friend zone.
Uh-huh. And it's like, yeah.
The nice guy.
The nice guy. But again, he is blaming her for his emotions. He is for his feelings and desires, and then is angry with her for his desire. Like that's just bleh. Like so angry at that. And those lines, the way that he says it, like,
yeah,
when he says, you taunt me, like her existence taunts him. That's the, she deserved to be raped because of her mini skirt or because she had big breasts. Like,
or, where is it? Was it Minnesota? Montana? I think it was Minnesota. I don't know if you saw this ruling, but the Supreme Court in the state decided that a rapist couldn't be held liable because the victim had voluntarily chosen to drink alcohol that night. So the fact that he raped her didn't matter because she decided to drink. And this is a decision that was just made, by the way. This just happened.
It's happening way too often.
Yeah, and considering alcohol is the most commonly used drug to felicitate, am I saying that right? Rape, like that's not a good thing for anyone in Minnesota right now. But I just saw that last night. But yeah, so Angel gets to the precinct. Doyle and Cordelia are there, and Angel hugs them, and he clearly has been hit with the whammy of the stick.
Yep.
And Cordelia,
which he admits to.
Yeah, which he admits to. He's well aware. He's like, yeah, I got him to tell me everything when I threatened him with violence. Like, David Boreanaz does a really good job of delivering these lines, so they are kind of humorous. But he's the only one that manages to do that. I think also because of who his character is.
Yep.
Because Angel himself is a sensitive person.
Like,
I mean, he is, like, he has feelings.
Yep.
But oh yeah, so the cop, they try to go into the precinct and the cop's like, we're closed, and Doyle's like, what do you mean you're closed? And they're like, everybody else gets to close, why don't we? Y'all come to us with our problems. And it's like, okay, so now they have to break into the police precinct.
Yep.
Which Angel wants to leave a note when they do.
Yes, because it committed an act of vandalism.
Yes. Oh, but little Tony, while this is going on, wants to kill Kate. That's what he's here to do.
Yep.
So he shoots another cop. I assume the cop is dead. And well, not assume, I think it's confirmed later on that he's dead.
Uh-huh.
They it all come the common area where all the police detectives desks are where like this big scene goes down of Kate's still trying to get a hold of her dad and just calling him repeatedly. Little Tony comes out with the gun looking for Kate, and Angel, Cordy, and Doyle walk in. And Little Tony's also happy to see Angel because he's pissed off at him too and also wants him dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Little Tony quite realized that although the sensitivity training made everyone a bit weepy, it also makes them violent.
Mm-hmm.
And Kate has a gun too.
Yep.
So the scene unfolds with I wrote down just hilariously bad because the rainbow painbow thing that Angel says.
Angel comes in and they're like, oh yeah, he's deflecting. Oh yeah, you know, and Kate and Angel are like talking back and forth about the emotions of the situation as Angel then like beats up Little Tony and says, you know, you could have been a rainbow instead of a painbow. And like, and
I feel like this episode is worth it just to get to the end where David Boreanaz says rainbow, painbow.
Yep. And so then we're dealing with the aftermath, and Little Tony has called Lee Mercer and is like, you have to get me out of here. And Lee's like, no, actually, we don't. We offered you an opportunity and you didn't take it. You have made things more difficult for us. And then says, you know, the senior clients believe that you are, you know,
a liability, basically.
A liability. This, your status as a client has been terminated, as is this conversation, and hangs up. And again, this is the robot Lee Mercer. You know, your status has been terminated, as has this conversation. Beep. And,
yep. And I did a hanging up motion there, but I think he's on a headset, so it's not that.
Yep. But in the meantime, they've got more pressing matters, according to the senior partners, and he's looking at surveillance footage of Angel.
Yeah.
And so we go to the precinct the next morning, and everybody's kind of returning to normal. They believe that someone spiked the alcohol at the Blue Bar, which is what caused everyone to act so weird. Angel and Kate check in with each other. He says that he doesn't remember much of the night, and she's like, oh, thank goodness, me too. And they just kind of pretend that nothing. It's a Xander hyena like situation.
Yep.
But then Kate goes to talk to her dad, and like you're expecting like this, you know, come together, but instead he's like, we're not going to talk about this ever again. Mm-hmm. Like, you humiliated me, you made an ass of yourself, we're not going to talk about it.
Yep. And not only were we expecting that moment, so was Kate. And he's like, nope, we're just not talking about this ever.
Yep. And that's the end of the episode.
Yep.
That's what we're left with.
And so it ends.
Yep.
Man, that was a crap episode.
I know. So the next time, the next time we're back in LA, it's a little bit better, but where are we at in Sunnydale next week? What's
Willow's broken heart?
Willow's broken heart. Willow's distraught broken heart. Because it was Wild at Heart, and then after Wild at Heart, it's the Initiative. This is when we discover the Initiative.
And Riley.
It's Spike. This is a Spike episode.
Yes. Thank God. Like, it's not even that I'm emotionally still distraught from Wild at Heart. It's just like, this was not a great episode from Angel, and I need something better.
And I
I
really feel like, season 3, season 4 of Buffy were really picking up. Season 1 of Angel is still a bit of a struggle. It gets so much better later, but
it's so like season 4 of Buffy gets a lot of crap for some. I think it's because people don't like Riley.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with Riley in season 4.
Yeah.
He's great in season 4. I love all the Spike stuff in season 4. It's great. It is fantastic, and we're about to hit the ground running with that.
Yep.
Meanwhile, this episode, again, I think we said this off camera, or off the podcast. This episode makes more sense now knowing what we know about Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
About why it was written this way.
Yep. And apparently, Joss specifically came in and made some changes to the script, specifically because, it was the vibe he was going for, including the fact that he said that, Kate would not have a makeup with her father. Like they would, he specifically said that it's going to be putting her back in her place.
Putting her back in her place. Was that was the wording he used?
I don't think that was
it. Okay. So I was like, that's really
bad. Let me see if I can find the quote from Tim Minear.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's an unrealistic ending with Kate's dad. He didn't experience anything other than his daughter saying this in a public forum that would have changed him, and he doesn't have the personality, it seems, where he gives a shit that he's ruined her life.
Yeah. Minear originally wrote a big TV ending where they hug, and Whedon said that instead Kate's father should act as though nothing has changed. If it gone the other way, the whole thing would have collapsed.
I don't think it would have collapsed.
And then Tim says, that's really Joss knowing best. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the earlier in the episode, Cordelia says, I don't care if Jar Jar gets his own TV show and forms the role. And that was just because in 1999, that's when The Phantom Menace came out, and everyone was like, oh my God, Jar Jar Binks. I had a life-size Jar Jar Binks cardboard cutout in my room.
Mm-hmm. Jar Jar was people I hate on Jar Jar, and I don't know why.
Well, okay, so I entered this competition, like a raffle, and there were all these really cool life-size, plastic or metal, 3D statues. There was a Darth Vader, there was an assassin.
You did not get that.
There was an R2-D2, and so they called me, they were like, you won. And I was like, oh my God, awesome, I won. And so I show up and there are all these really cool ones, and then they take me into the back of the room, and there's this creepy ass Jar Jar Binks with his tongue kind of poking out and his fingers up, and it says, how tall is Jar Jar Binks? And it's got a ruler, for you to compare next to how tall Jar Jar Binks is. And I was like, well, I guess I'll take it. But it was so disappointing because it wasn't the R2-D2, or it wasn't the C-3PO or the assassin droid, or it was the cardboard cutout. I'm gonna finger you, Jar Jar Binks.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that your father still has that, doesn't he?
No, we ended up throwing it away.
Ah, surprising.
I ended up throwing it away. But it was many years later. So
I just remember that year at the MTV Movie Awards, Jar Jar Bing was all over it.
Yep.
That's what I remember.
All right.
Childhood.
So now that we've had this random thank you for just jossing with me. Next week we are back in the Hellmouth.
Yes, and we'll probably not talk about Star Wars next week. Have a good one.
Bye.